Self, founder of Texas Suicide Prevention Council, testifying for himself, testifying for the bill.
She's not here.
We'll show Ms. Keller not testifying for the bill. Lisa Sullivan, Texas Suicide Prevention Council, testifying for the bill.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Sullivan. I'm director of the Texas Suicide Prevention Council. One of the areas of our focus is youth suicide prevention, and I'm here today to express our support and gratitude for Bill 3411. The handout you are giving references what Representative Allison was just talking about concerning the YRBS. It's late in the day. I'm not going to go through the statistics on that, but I do want to call your attention to the lower left-hand side of that chart. Representative Allison mentioned 1 out of 8 students have attempted suicide in Texas. Underneath that, you'll notice that it's 66% higher for Texas students than other students of the national average. So while these staggering statistics in and of themselves provide the opportunity to look at the support for this bill, I do want to talk a little bit about the preparation to handle this situation in our schools. According to the Texas School Safety Center, the 2014-2017 district audit report, nearly 30% of our schools under 500 population do not have a plan for suicide prevention. And that's as of 2017, so that's relatively recent. Roughly 10% of our schools under 10,000 still did not have a plan for suicide prevention. And of those, there is also no review process to ensure what plans are in place, have an evidence base to support their approach, or what should be provided within that. I've also submitted some written testimony. One of them is from Dr. Holly Robles, who is the former effective learning person inside of Bernie ISD. And I just want to share a quote with you from her testimony. And I quote, "As I consult with school districts across the state, I hear consistently from counselors and administrators that they feel woefully unprepared to understand and respond to suicidal ideation and self-harm." So we do ask your support for this particular bill, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Questions? Thank you. Dr. Brown, testifying for himself, testifying for the bill. Brendan Brown.
Hello, my name is Brendan Brown. I will be representing myself, and I am for this bill. I am currently a student athlete at St. Mary's University in San Antonio and a 2017 graduate of Lake Travis High School. And I am here today to speak to House Bill 3411 about the importance of creating suicide-safe school environments. According to the 2017 Youth Risk Behavior Survey handout, over 14% of students surveyed that they had made a suicide plan. I am here today to share one of my many experiences about that 14%. My first time seeing someone at risk of suicide was my freshman year of high school. A close friend of mine was showing signs that he was a danger to himself. A combination of rotating personalities and painfully dark humor led me to worry for his own safety. Days later, I was led to believe that he intended to commit suicide after his athletic practice. Fortunately, I recognized the warning signs of suicide and knew to take any suicide talk seriously. With my parents' help, remember I was 15 at the time, and after receiving many voice recordings from several hotlines, I ended up calling 911 to explain the situation. The sheriff had arrived at his practice towards the end. My friend confirmed to the sheriff that he intended to kill himself when he arrived home. He was 45 minutes away from dying. The sheriff took him home to his parents. Days later, he was diagnosed with multiple mental health disorders and went on to receive treatment. I'm happy to report today that he is in college, doing well, and we remain in touch. My message to you is this. Imagine if every student and staff member in our schools not only knew the warning signs, but exactly what to do when they came across somebody who might be at risk of suicide. Also, imagine if students and schools were better equipped to identify students who are at risk, help them find the care that they need, and most importantly, provide the support they need when they are at school with their friends and teachers. We may be able to save more lives. Thank you.
Questions? Yeah.
Excellent job. Well done. Secondly, getting back to your years in high school, as it relates to suicide and other kids in your class and throughout the school, were you aware of counselor help? Did you feel like there were enough counselors on campus? And I'm just asking for your opinion, because as we're kind of going through this, obviously mental health is such a huge part. I want to just get your evidence from you being in high school, just kind of your thoughts on your accessibility to counselors, if there's a stigma dealing with counselors, just any of your thoughts about it.
Absolutely. There was definitely counselors available. I feel like a lot of children who are in that position unfortunately don't recognize that they need to help themselves, or sometimes that they're even in a danger to themselves until it's clearly too late. And what I think that this bill will help with is showing every kid that there are many steps to take before you get to that point for yourself and as friends of people who you know need help.
And did the school, I'm sorry, I apologize, where'd you go to high school?
Lake Travis High School.
Did you feel like the counselors were, their availability, accessibility, location was promoted by the school? Did you feel like it was something that the kids were well aware of? Is it something maybe we can look to do a better job of, or school districts can look to do a better job of?
I would say it was average of most high schools, nothing extraordinary, and I think that's something we could work towards.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
we do, they're testifying for themselves, testifying against the bill. We do, we will show this do not testify against the bill. Joshua Jarros, testifying for themselves, we will.
Josh Juris, again, Montgomery County, testifying just on the bill. I liked a lot of the language in the bill, especially when it talked about early intervention, prevention, and then postvention. And I liked it because it encompasses everything from the start to the finish. And I think sometimes we're looking at a reaction to something that's already occurred. And I like that about the bill. I like that it covers everything. I want to jump on the bill. One thing that I think the bill does not address that I would like to see added is language that would include schools to recognize right now that family situations with children at school are affecting those children's behaviors. A lot of children that commit suicide come from homes where the family is broken. Right now, 63% of children of youth that commit suicide come from a home where they do not have access to a father. I think it's an important thing that should be added to the bill. Otherwise, I would be in full support of the bill.
Thank you. Questions? All right, thank you. CJ Grissom, testifying for the bill.
CJ Grisham, testifying on behalf of myself in favor of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Ellison, for bringing this up. In 2009, the Chief of Staff of the Army, and I'm going to use my veteran experience to talk about this suicide prevention bill, but the Secretary of the Army, Chief Pete Corelli, implemented a program to get rid of the stigma of PTSD and help people to be able to come forward without worrying about jeopardizing their Army careers. I was a first sergeant at the time, and I went to my commander after talking with Chief Corelli during an interview I did, and I told my commander, because I had been told for many, many years I needed to get help. There's something wrong with me. I had a lot of survivor's guilt from Iraq, and I carried that burden around for a long time. And so I pulled my commander in, I said, sir, I've got to step down. I stepped down as a first sergeant, and I pulled my soldiers in. One of the hardest things I ever did was coming back and saying to my soldiers what was going on. The reason I bring that up is because this reintegration piece is important. The hardest part, first of all, is getting help. The second hardest part is then facing those people that are going to judge you when you come back. So educating kids, not only that it's okay to get help, but that the people that do seek help it's a very strong thing to do, and how they should and could respond to a classmate or a teacher or somebody coming back after having that strength to go and get help is extremely important, because all of that help that you got and fixing yourself can be completely destroyed if you come back and everyone else starts treating you as a pariah because they don't know how to respond to you. And so this is a very important piece, and it hasn't been something I've seen addressed before, is that reintegration of what happens after someone goes and gets help. Because you're at a very critical point, and you're fragile, I guess is a good word for it. So I was lucky enough that I had soldiers that I could lean on when I came back that recognize that, and I hope students with this bill and teachers will be able to do the exact same thing. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else willing to testify on or against House Bill 3411? If not,
Oh, yeah, it's,
Sheila Hempel, Texas Right to Know, testify on the bill.
thank you, Chair and Committee, and for this late hour all day long. So, I'm Sheila Hemphill with Texas Right to Know, and I'm testifying on this bill. I'm going to continue on what the gentleman before me was talking about, the stigma associated with mental illness. I myself was hospitalized for 30 days in 1990. Even though I was well within a week, I was in a mental facility for the exact amount of time that I had health care coverage to keep me there. That is an attribute of my life that basically I have kept not ashamed of, but not something that I would openly talk about, especially in this building, given the fact that I am a registered lobbyist lobbying on issues. It wasn't until the TMA representative in the health committee came out talking about her struggle with depression and her fears of how she would be perceived if she revealed to the public that she had struggles with mental illness. In her talk, she talked about how 1 in 3 people are actually subject to some form of mental illness at some point in time. I have been seeing all of these mental illness bills coming out. I believe last time I checked for mental, it was like 400. That is the bill of the 2019 is about mental health illness. I have severe pause when these bills have no mention to research physical root causes that can manifest as mental illness. Who on this panel has ever heard of PANDAS? Can I see any PANDAS? Anybody ever heard of it? It's pediatric autoimmune neuropsychosis associated with strep. So if you have a sore throat and they swab your throat and you have strep, you get an antibiotic. But if that strep infection affects your brain or your child's brain, they might stop eating, stop drinking, stop sleeping, stop wearing clothes, walk out in the middle of the night in traffic. So if we are simply looking at symptomology and we're observing behavior, you observe that behavior in your child or in the classroom, and that child is more likely going to be destined to some sort of psychiatric evaluation and can end up institutionalized. None of which are looking for the bacterial infection, the viral infections, the fungus infections, the food allergies. I plead with, yes,
Wrap up, please.
oh, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
And people don't even have to see me anymore. If I start seeing, when you're educating, physical root causes that can manifest as psychiatric dysfunction. So the paper I have in front of you is an example of even the side effects of pharmaceutical drugs, because the child on the left was on 7 medications after seeing 5 specialists, 11 diagnoses, on 7 meds. Once physical root causes of nutritional deficiencies were identified, his handwriting's on the right. So it can turn into financial benefit to find out root causes too. So I appreciate your patience. Oh, I didn't know there was a timer. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else willing to testify on or against House Bill 3411? If not, we'll call on Representative Allison to close this bill.
Close.